Hey everybody, welcome back from break. We're now starting to look at the letters of Gaius Plinius, who we often refer to as Pliny the Younger. Well, if there's a younger, there's going to be also an elder. And this reading that we're going to be doing, which for, I guess, the most important historical aspect of it is the eruption of Vesuvius and the description of this, but it's really also a kind of letter of praise about Pliny the Elder, who is Pliny the Younger's maternal uncle. So if we imagine that there's a family and then there's Pliny the Elder, and he has a sister. Well, this sister married somebody else and then had a son also named Gaius Pliny. Well, we're dealing with what we might call the praenomen. These are the given names, praenomina. Pliny is really just what would often be called the nomen, which is the family name. So it's no surprise that Pliny the Younger has the same name as Pliny the Elder. This would be like saying, well, my uncle is also named Duncan, so he's Duncan the Elder. Duncan the Younger is me. My praenomen just happens to be Al, where his would be, well, Raleigh or Robert. It doesn't really matter. This is the relationship between Pliny the Younger and Pliny the Elder. That's, this avuncular relationship isn't necessarily that close. I mean, you all might be close to your uncles if you have any, but it's not direct line. However, this Pliny the Elder was an important person in his own right. He wrote what are often called the natural histories. I think it's a 37-volume study of the natural world. He's a bit of a biologist, a botanist. So this was proved very influential. It doesn't survive intact. We have bits of it, but it was a very big read for a very long time. So then his nephew is also a kind of man of letters. Obviously, we're getting his work here, and there's a few other things that Pliny wrote, but we don't need to get into those. Right now, we're getting this collection of letters that he wrote over the course of his life that he would then choose to publish. So should we think that these things are not edited? No, they are certainly edited, certainly made for production. But this one, if we look at the recipient, and we'll get to the Latin in a second, might have been already pretty polished to begin with. So Pliny the Younger, this is the Gaius Plinius we're looking at. And again, as always, we use the C, like we had with Gaius Mucius before the break. C, even though it's just a C, really represents Gaius, one of the most common praenomen or praenomina of ancient Rome. So we have Gaius Pliny, so John Pliny, something like that. Tacito, suo, S. So this Tacito is a dative form of Tacitus, or Tacitus, but as we call him now, Tacitus, who was a famous Roman historian, wrote a number of things, and Tacitus is trying to put together his histories, and has requested from Gaius Plinius the Younger some information about Gaius Plinius, or just Plinius the Elder. So suo is literally saying Gaius Plinius to his dear friend, to his Tacitus. So this is just a term of endearment. We're using the possessive personal pronoun, but one might say dear Tacitus. Gaius Plinius writing to dear Tacitus. And then this final M is short for salutem, and then there's a kind of supplied dicet. All of this means Gaius Plinius says hello to his Tacitus. But we might just, the best translation of this, really, the cultural translation for all of this would be, we'd have the letterhead, and we know that this is from the office of Gaius Plinius, and it's got everything. And then dear Tacitus. That's the sort of fixed phrase that we're getting with this whole thing. Gaius Plinius, Tacito suo salutem, is what the whole thing would be read out. So that's just the address. That's all we need to know. So now let's move down to the actual text. Petus ut tibi, that should be avunculi, me exitum scribam, quo verius tradere posteris possis. So we have some nice things like this posteris possis. It's nice sounding. This is also, like Livy's history, going to be a fairly literary letter. So petus, well, we just saw this in today's a class from a while ago. Peto, to seek. So this is a third conjugation verb. So petis means you are seeking, you seek. And then this is a phrase that can, you're seeking for a certain purpose, so that we can easily have a purpose clause follow on a verb such as petis. So you're seeking that to you of uncle, because this is avunculus. We have the kind of sesquipedalian word in Latin, but we have it, avuncular, because uncles are often nice, or are kind of imagined as being nice. An avuncular comment or aid would be something where an uncle gives you, a nice $100 for your birthday or something like this. So even though we said, that relationship between Gaius Plinius and his uncle is not necessarily the closest, they actually were quite close. And that uncle relationship, especially a maternal uncle, is often seen as being someone fairly close. So you're seeking that to you of uncle, my uncle, the exitum. So this is coming from the fourth declension noun, exitus, exitus. And this, it's obviously coming from go out. It's a nominalization of the kind of verb ex ire, to go out. And just then as now, we want to have a lot of euphemisms, nice ways of saying death. So we're not talking about, his most piteous death and destruction of body. No, we're saying his exit from his passing on. So so you are seeking that to you of my uncle's death that I write. So scribam, what can we say about this? Well, scribo is the verb, and it's scribere, and then if you were actually to know all the principal parts, it'd be scripsi and scriptum. This is a good one to know. So scribam, coming from the present stem, right here, we drop the O, we add the am. This tells us we're present subjunctive. So we're all in the present tense here. It's not the kind of Livian history. We've got you are seeking that I currently write you about the death of my uncle. Quo. So Lafleur gives a bit of a quote here, or a kind of gloss here, but this is from qui, quae, quod, our relative pronoun, and it's the ablative singular quo down there. So if we went nominative, genitive, dative, ablative, accusative, that's the ablative. So by means of which, that's really what we're doing here. Let me write that out. By means of which. By means of which, more truly, to tradere, tradere, literally trans do, to give across. This is where we get tradition for, this is hand down. So that more truthfully, to hand down to posteries. So literally those after, those behind. And if you think of time as something that can be expressed physically, these are those who are behind you. And that seems funny. When we say behind in English, we mean the past. But I think it's important. Let me draw a terrible graphic here. This is some kind of power boat, all right? And it's on the waves. And it's moving this way. You, nice little person there, are sitting on the back of the boat looking out. So this actually does a decent job of kind of approximating a timeline, right? Here we are in the present. We're actually able to see the past, everything that's happened before, while those things that are in the future, the direction that we're going, we actually can't quite see. So when we talk about what's behind us, that's on this side, and that's literally those who will be in the future. So it's a little bit contradictory to our English way of thinking of things that are after are, or behind are things that would have happened before, but this is the later, and then I think maybe after does a nice job of doing posteries. So by means of which, more truly, to hand on as a tradition to those after us, you may be able to. All right, so that's a big old thing. So you are seeking a purpose. That purpose is that I write to you about my uncle's death. Why? That by means of that. This is so a kind of a relative clause of purpose. So by means of which more truly to hand it down to posterity, we might say, you are able. So you want a true story from my uncle. So truth is, in this very first sentence, being put on a kind of pedestal. That's what's important. Gratias ago. I lead, drive, give, thanks. Thanks a lot. And he doesn't mean that sarcastically, as I kind of said there. For video, for I see, morti eius. So what's morti, right? Well, it could be, because we're coming from mors mortis, so a third declension. So this could be probably ablative, maybe dative. That's the kind of realm we're working in. So by his death, or to or for his death, see, if celebretur a te, if by you it is, and again this is a present subjunctive. How do we know that? Well, we have to know what verb this is coming from, and that's celebro, which is a first conjugation. So celebro, celebrare, celebravi, celebratum. Here, if we have this kind of form with this e, we know we're in the present subjunctive. So if it's going to be, or so if it is contemporary, if it is celebrated by you, immortal glory, there is propositam, esse propositam. So thank you, for I see that. So this is what? Giving us a kind of indirect statement. I see that, I say that, I know that to or for his death, or by his death, if it's celebrated by you, for I see immortal glory is put. I think that it will be put. So propositam, put forward. I mean, kind of earned, gained here. So there will be immortal glory. Propositam also makes us think that this will be a dative. Immortal glory is given to him if you're celebrating his death. So we've got a kind of do ut des situation here, or maybe kind of a mutual exchange. Tacitus, the subject of Petis, is seeking information so that he may more truly report history. This is actually working great for Pliny the Younger, because he sees that when his uncle's death is celebrated by a great historian, his uncle will have immortal glory, and that's something that, of course, you'd want to give your uncle. So this is that he report truly, and that the glory be given. That's really what will be the outcome of this relationship. Of course, we're adding to that glory and this relationship by publishing this letter publicly. So we'll continue up with Quam Vis through the next, I guess through Audit in our next video. See you then.